yet, which I learned in the cab yesterday with my lovely Russian translator. And I know that this is the informal way to greet somebody. However, the formal way to greet somebody, I can't actually pronounce. So as such, we are now all friends, which is a good way to start. So I am going to be talking about sponsorship, and if you think this isn't for you, I can promise you it will be, and I will explain why. But not only do I think sponsorship is fundamental for events and the future of experience with events, I also think it is fundamental to the growth and the direction in which brands communicate with their customers or consumers, depending on whatever Timo says. But basically, I did want to say thank you to the lovely speakers that spoke earlier, because they've queued this up very well for me. But first, I should introduce myself. My name's Jackie Fast. I founded an agency about 7 years ago that predominantly works with people trying to sell sponsorship. So people hire me, and I go forth and I knock on people's doors and get very big brands to spend upwards of tens of millions of pounds to sponsor loads of different events. Within the first year that I started working, I worked with pretty amazing people, including Prince. I worked with the Rolling Stones. I worked with very big brands like Red Bull. 6 years on from that, I can kind of grew it quite phenomenally. But we work with loads and loads of brands now all across the world looking to activate their sponsorship better. I now also work with Sir Richard Branson, who's a direct client, as well as people like Elton John. So I am going to kind of explain all of my years of doing this, and predominantly just this, my entire career, to kind of look at how you can kind of make your event better through collaboration. And although Burning Man kind of was up here saying that they don't do sponsorship, I'd actually probably argue quite strongly that they do. So the view of what you think sponsorship is for an event is changing pretty dramatically. And really the way that I like to look at it is how you work collaboratively with brands, with partners, with networks to drive a bigger and greater experience. So let's have a go. And actually, sorry, one of the things that I forgot to mention is I sold my agency last year and had some time to write a lovely book about how you can do the same, of which we'll go into a bit more detail. But first, I'd like to tell you a story. So when I was young, I really wanted to be a mathematician. I loved math. And more than just loving math, what I loved about math was that I liked to be right. So when you add 2 plus 2, the answer is 4. And I can call my mother, who lives in Canada, and if I ask her what 2 plus 2 is, she will say 4. You don't have to speak English to know the right answer. It is very black and white. And that's what I loved about math. It was so great. I could always be right in every situation, in any language. I loved it. But much like I'm sure you, I graduated and went into a job that had absolutely nothing to do with math. My first job was working in a golf resort where I sold sponsorship. Now, my very first client, my first event, was a bank that sponsored a golf tournament, pretty standard stuff. And the first day that they had their event, it was sunny, everybody was super happy, he ended up signing a client. And so when I phoned him up the next day and I said, do you want to renew for next year? He said, absolutely, Jackie, we would love to renew. We think this event is the best. Now, I walked away from that thinking, I am very good at selling sponsorship. I am very good at my job. So I was thinking, you know, I must be the next sponsorship guru. So fast forward 12 months on to the next year that they sponsored this event. I woke up in the morning and it was raining. And it wasn't just raining, it was kind of West Coast raining, which is thunderstorms and a nightmare. The event still went on, however, half of his attendees did not show up. He did not play a good game and, surprise, surprise, did not sell anything or did not win any new business. So when I called him to renew for the following year, not only did he not renew, he did not take my calls for quite some time, actually, which got me thinking, you know, how am I supposed to sell and build up partnerships if I cannot control the weather? Because it's not my job to make sure that it doesn't rain. And actually, when you think about it, when you're looking at sponsorship, there are so many variables with an event. There are a whole bunch of things that need to go right for that experience to be truly unique. And what makes it challenging, and one of the things that I particularly love about sponsorship even more, is that there are so many variables. And those produce random outcomes. I cannot control the weather. God, it'd be amazing if I could, but I cannot. And there's also a lack of measurement. So when I called the guy to renew, and he did not renew the following year, I couldn't even say why he should renew, because I honestly had absolutely no idea why he sponsored it in the first place. So not only could I not have figured out why he would renew or not renew, even if I was going to help him renew, I should have at least known what he was trying to achieve. So what happens is you tend to have these partnerships that are kind of always evolving and ever more difficult. So I kind of take away from that experience and thought, with my maths brain, how do I approach sponsorship with the rigorous output that you do with math? How can I ensure that the 2 + 2 with any event that I run does equate to success? And so I went through my journey trying to figure this out. And one of the things you have to know is, well, what does 4 look like? So what is the holy grail of sponsorship? When do you know a partnership is really good, is really successful? Well, quite frankly, it's pretty easy. Success beyond expectations. Most people usually respond to a partnership that they know has worked by saying, it was so great, we had so many people, we started a new room. It was so lovely that our Facebook page blew up and we had interns writing content for it. It was success beyond what they anticipated. And the reason that they did not anticipate it is because they weren't familiar or sure or had the right information to know what the input was, because they're working with somebody else. They're working with another organization, they don't work within that organization, who have a whole bunch of different skill sets that they're bringing to the table. But they're seeing success beyond what they thought. Now that's a really interesting thing, which I'm not gonna bang on about today, but the second one, it worked. Brands typically want an uplift in something, even if it is CSR related. Doesn't necessarily always mean sales, but then there's awareness. They sold more cans of Coke. They got more bums on seats, loads of those kind of things. When you talk about it from a rights holder perspective, they always talk about renewals. Well, I know it worked, so like the golf, I know it didn't work because he did not renew. But rights holders know that the partnership was successful because the brand in question renewed. They wanted to do the event again. So it's pretty easy, 3 things. Success looks like renewals, it's beyond expectations, and people got something out of it, which is quite good. And yet, as I'm sure all of you have been here before, especially working in events, it very rarely looks like that. Most people find sponsorship so challenging, very difficult, just challenging in so many levels. And the times that it work are often so few that people don't feel like it's worth the effort. So I'm kind of here to tell you that it is, but it's purely down to a whole bunch of things that we do instinctively that really block how we can make a partnership work. Because if you go back to what your mother says, 2 heads are better than 1. But it's a weird thing in a business situation that doesn't work, but it can work. But the reason that it is failing is purely down to this one thing. And actually, like I said, the speakers queued this up very, very good for me. The game has changed. How we communicate, how we go through the world, how we buy stuff, how we influence our friends to buy stuff is radically different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Now, it's easy for me to say that. It's really easy for me to put really fancy slides on the screen and show you videos, of which I'm going to do anyways. But this is something that we all know. And yet when we go through our day-to-day jobs with event management or production or sponsorship or any of this stuff, we actually don't live it, which is because of a number of instinctive things that we do as people, which we'll go through. But sponsorship has always been about the audience. It's always been about connecting with your customers. So how I want to talk about the change really is, I like to describe it as one-way communications have become two-way communications. So before the digital communications that we had, brands used to talk to you via billboards, via radio, via print. They had an output to you and you chose how to take that as you will. We now can talk to brands. If I actually have an issue with a teacup that I bought, I can tweet about it, and likely somebody will respond. That is actually incredibly powerful. And we take it for granted because we do it every day, but when you start thinking about how that looks from a communication and a brand engagement level, it is so significant. And I usually like to kind of show a bit of a video just to drive it home. Now, I show that video a lot. You know, it's got good music. It's always a good thing after people have had lunch and want to snooze. But actually, people love the stats. I've actually been showing that video or a version of that video for 5 years, and it's crazy how much the stats have changed in even those 5 years. what I love and hate about that video is that everybody laughs and nods along because you all know this, but you don't actually take it through. So I like to tell a bit of a story. I travel, as you can imagine, quite a lot. With my job, I used to fly about one long-haul flight a week, which was killer, and I found out that, unlike what I used to think when I was a child, traveling for work is not as much fun as it kind of looks on TV. And I'm also slightly OCD, and the one thing that I really like about my house is my pillow. I'm not the best sleeper in the world, and what I found with working and traveling is that when I get to a hotel and it has a terrible pillow, it's like all hell breaks loose. I'm not a very happy camper. I'm not very nice to the event organizers or the clients that I usually turn up with. So I started getting like really weird about it and travel with my pillow in certain circumstances. Now, I just got back from Hong Kong, and I'd just like to, make that video a little bit more relatable. And had I had flown to Hong Kong 15 years ago, I'd just like to kind of run you through my story. What would typically happen is I would get onto the plane, I would open the in-flight magazine, and in it would say, Hilton hotels in Hong Kong have the best pillows. Now I think, this is good. I like pillows. Hilton hotels seem to like pillows. Nice, very smart. So I come off the plane, I walk down the corridor. There's a 48 sheet. There's a girl that looks like me. It says, Hilton Hotels Hong Kong have the best pillows. And by the way, we're sustainable and they're down. And I think, it's a girl that looks like me. She likes pillows, I like pillows, and they're down. By the way, I like down pillows. So I pick up my bag through the checkout, I go through customs. I don't ask the woman at the information desk because she obviously lives in Hong Kong and that would be silly. I then maybe pick up a pamphlet. I read more about Hilton hotels in Hong Kong. Maybe it's really close to the airport. Ticks all my boxes. There's no doubt. Where would I stay? Hilton hotels. Now, let's take my actual journey. I just got back from Hong Kong 3 weeks ago. And what I did is what all of you would normally do is I went on the internet. But actually, more specifically, I went on TripAdvisor and I typed in the word pillows. And there are 53 comments about pillows in hotels in Hong Kong. And it turns out Hilton hotels do not have good pillows. There's actually loads of problems with them. They are lumpy. They apparently have a pillow menu that they don't provide you. So let's take the exact same journey. I get on the plane, I open the in-flight magazine, and I see an ad and it says Hilton hotels in Hong Kong have the best pillows. And I think, you lying. I come off the plane, I walk down the corridor, there's a 48 sheet, a girl that looks like me, and she's saying Hilton hotels have the best pillows, and I think to myself, my God, they're spending a lot of money trying to fix this pillow problem in Hong Kong. I pick up my bag, I go through security, and I don't stop at the information desk because I already know where I'm staying, and it's not Hilton hotels. Now, we just saw from the video, it said 14% of people only believe 14% of advertising, but it's not just that. It's when you look to purchase your opportunity. All of that is revolutionary, different to where it was 10 or 15 years ago. I'm going to just continue. Oh, there we go. We're fine.
Oh, sorry, Jack. We have a problem with mic. Another one.
Hello? Good? Testing. All right. So the thing, how we purchase and the behavior that we use to purchase the things that we buy has changed. The things that influence us has changed. So when we take into context that sponsorship is about an audience, partnership is about engagement, we're trying to work together to kind of achieve something together, you have to take this shit into context. Because actually, if sponsorship is about mutual benefit, how much are we benefiting people with the logo? I'm going to show you one more that's, again, specific to an event of which you'll all be familiar with and just recently happened. This is the Coca-Cola Polar Bowl, and I just am going to show you a little video.
When Coca-Cola asked us to bring back the polar bears for this year's big matchup between New England and New York, the agency knew it would be a challenge. Cute bears and football don't necessarily go together. Unless they're part of an unprecedented campaign, the first to fully integrate football, polar bears, and how viewers consume media in and around the most watched sporting event on Earth. It started with a digital idea that cast the polar bears as football fans, one rooting for New England, one for New York. Then invited America to watch the bears watch the game live. As the game was played, we puppeted the polar bears, making them react to everything that happened in real time. When New England scored, the New England Bear celebrated. When New York scored, the New York Bear did the same. And when the halftime show really got going, so did the Bears. They even reacted to the advertising, from the racy ads to the patriotic ads to the ads of our competitors. The entire campaign generated enormous chatter. Twitter and Facebook lit up with over 5,000 comments per minute. And despite not having thumbs, the polar bears responded to fans in real time. Fans who were watching the Bears watched the game on over 9 million screens. And watching for an average of 28 minutes per screen, that's a really long commercial. That's also a lot of eyeballs. When the television aired, the spots were synced with our digital stream and also reacted to the game. Multiple versions were produced and aired based on how the game was going. After the game, publications looking beyond traditional advertising ranked the campaign as a first, carving out a new space for digital, real-time advertising with unprecedented results. Not bad for a webcam from the Arctic.
So the interesting thing about that are actually the stats. 9 million users tuned in for an average dwell time of 28 minutes. Now, when you take into account that a 30-second slot at the Super Bowl is $3.5 million US, the value of that campaign was $195 million US. There's a backstory as well that's pretty interesting. But the great part about this is that Coca-Cola weren't even sponsors of the Super Bowl. Pepsi was. So it makes you think, it should really turn your head thinking, what is sponsorship? Do you need sponsorship to engage? Do you know where your audience is? And this is the capability that we're living in today. But furthermore, it's not about the logo. Pepsi-Cola was a sponsor. They had their logo everywhere. They didn't get the engagement because that's not what the consumers were looking for. Customers, whatever. So sponsorship is now a perfect platform for engagement. We've already kind of talked, I think Timo mentioned, we are bombarded with marketing messages. And to speak to somebody in an authentic, genuine way is harder now to have that connection and for a brand to kind of reach new audiences and, quite frankly, to even engage with the current audience. Sponsorship provides that interactive multi-platform opportunity. We, again, Salvatore, I think, mentioned about the online and offline engagement, and that's the future for events. This is what sponsorship provides. And, of course, fan loyalty. You've already got the cut-through. You've already got the avenue. The other part about this is the creation of content. And event sponsorship is really about engaging with a captive audience, and this is what sponsorship provides when done effectively. And the thing is that everything changes so quickly, and what captures an audience today is not necessarily what will capture an audience in 10 days from now, in a month from now. And your ability to kind of monitor real time, utilize your events, and understand your audience is now really accessible, which makes these partnerships a lot more valuable to both the rights holder and the brand. And finally, simple things can resonate further than before. And I'm going to kind of go into this in a little bit more detail, but I wanted to show you something that's probably a little bit more what you normally see in sponsorship, so that you can start thinking outside the box.
O2 wants to find a way for supporters to get closer to the Irish rugby team, to make the fans feel that their support could actually make a difference. So we gave supporters an opportunity to record a team talk for the players. On BeTheDifference.ie, fans could record their own team talk at home and view other supporters' videos. The best team talks were played to the team and on the giant screens at Croke Park Stadium before the games. But what if you didn't want to record a stirring speech? What else could we do to encourage supporters to participate? We gave them a chance to become the very fibre of the team. Their names would make up the numbers the players wore. Fans who signed up online were in with a chance to have their name printed onto a jersey. Supporters could then search for their name on our site to see which player they were a part of. And social networking sites allowed the fans to chat with each other and with the players. Over 85,000 fans registered their support to get behind the team.
Mention the Irish shirts, which are a really fantastic idea.
Lads, I only ever saw my old man cry once. Not at my wedding, not at my sister's wedding, but Raj, when you got that drop goal last season, unbelievable event. So could we repeat that again? I'd like to see the old tear in his eye. Thanks.
Now, the reason I like to show that one is really specifically about how you can utilize things to create assets that generate engagement and experience. Obviously, you saw with their shirts, they use the numbers. Nobody had really done that before. And within a sponsorship, you have all of these rights, most of which are not exploited or utilized or actually thought through in any kind of creative way. But when it is, it becomes a real opportunity. Again, going back for Coca-Cola and Pepsi, Coca-Cola managed to do that without any rights. But imagine if they did have rights. Now, I always kind of get shafted a bit because I do tend to show bigger campaigns, but the point about this is really that it doesn't always have to cost multi-millions. It doesn't always have to be a big global brand doing stuff. Engagement and working in sponsorship can actually come from a load of different ways, and this is something that I quite like. Now, the great thing about that, it transcends languages, really. Everybody understands and resonates and can connect with the laughter of another human being. And actually, with Coca-Cola, they kind of really harnessed that. And they utilized that campaign globally, which actually connected with all different audiences. And so if we were just going to sum up the first bit, just to make it really easy, I can't stress enough, you need to look at sponsorship in a very different light. If you are able to harness the ability to work collaboratively with people, the stuff you can do is truly phenomenal. And I certainly am testament to that. But fundamentally, most people start sponsorship off on the wrong foot. Sponsorship is not about a logo. It is not about where your logo gets placed on the lanyard. It's not about how many tickets you get as part of your partnership. Sponsorship is really about how you can utilize two very differing organizations to create something greater than the sum of its parts. And once you start fundamentally understanding that, the power of sponsorship can take your events and your event experience further than you could ever thought possible before. Because, going back to what I originally said, two heads are always better than one. The second thing, authenticity, so important. Authenticity really works. Ken, going back, you sponsored the event, so we're gonna, Coca-Cola, you know, people are really wise to you sponsored the event, so we're gonna put our logo everywhere, and, you know, kind of at certain circumstances, it can do more harm than good. But if you are authentic in why you're partnering with somebody, you understand the objectives of both parties, and you're working towards the same goal, you know, it really can create some amazing opportunities. The third thing is a simple message resonates further, as we saw with Coca-Cola, but also we just watched The Night Watch, which I thought was really clever as well. And those are kind of the things that really work now. Now, I just wanted to do a bit about the future trends in event sponsorship as well, because obviously everybody wants to know what's next in store. And so I'm going to just start off with this. Now this is really interesting. So let's talk about North Face. Are you guys all familiar with North Face? Cool. So North Face effectively is for outdoorsy people. You know, they create leisure wear for people outdoorsy. Now, when you think about it, how do you find outdoorsy people? Because they're outdoors. How do you market to outdoorsy people? Because they ain't in front of a TV. You know, you can't take a logo and start covering random rocks in hopes that somebody might see you and know that you're doing outdoorsy stuff. You know, viral communication only goes so far. And the other challenge with outdoorsy people is they don't go in packs. You know, if you like music, you go to a concert with loads of people, outdoorsy people by themselves with their other mate that likes rock climbing, you know, go out into the woods. So actually, the North Face have a huge challenge because their customer is a very tricky beast. And what they've done to market to their customer and engage with them, talk about their new products, is that what they did is they sponsored all of the things that they do, as you've seen in the video. So they do yoga, they do mountain climbing. The North Face can be worn for when you go camping with your family. And so they did, you know, yoga retreats or the camping expo. And actually, that is a really inefficient use of marketing budget. Because they are targeting a niche area when actually their clothes are available for everybody who enjoys loads of different outdoorsy things. So after they kind of challenged, or after they had so many challenges for so many years and their budgets, you know, started whittling away, quite frankly, and they weren't getting the results that they used to see for all of the reasons I've kind of already outlined to you, what they decided to do is scrap it. And they said, you know what, screw this, why don't we create our own event? For our people, because we know what they like to do, we know the activities that they like to do. Why don't we just put it all in one little area, and then we can brand the shit out of it. So basically what they did is they created something called the Night Rays Festival, which has all of the activities you could want, targeting all of the outdoorsy people to come together to kind of engage with the brand. Now, more cleverly than that, they thought, who else needs to hit outdoorsy people that are really difficult to market to? Which is why you see Jeep. So not only did they create an event totally by themselves, they got rid of all of their rights holders, they actually got it sponsored. And when you start thinking about this, Jeep actually paid for the North Face marketing. And this is a trend that you're seeing, because actually now that we've got the opportunity and brands have the opportunity to engage with their consumers or their customers, they have the ability to do that. And this is a huge trend that you can see across all different sectors. So this has a play for both rights holders and brands. Rights holders who are not changing or not wanting to work with the brand in terms of reaching their outcome are actually getting left behind because they're not providing the assets that brands need to engage with their customers. They're only providing logos on lanyards, which we all know doesn't work. Further than that, you see brands really kind of making a new path. They're looking at marketing and event marketing and experience marketing as key to them to get their customers, better than all of the other stuff that they've kind of been doing. So this is a huge trend from experience, from sponsorship-led, all of that. The other thing that I think is really important, and I could probably bang on about this for days, technology, I kind of talked about the way that consumers interact from a marketing and communications perspective, but actually technology as a general thing or a product or a platform has the ability to create partnerships that you would probably not consider sponsorships, but that are. So things like open API, the ability to share code beyond kind of a platform is absolutely significant, specifically in sport, but we'll go through it in a non-sport example. Critical mass beyond VC funding. You have a huge upstart of VC funders going into app development, but actually not understanding how they can reach critical mass. Sponsorship plays a huge role in this from a technology standpoint. Obviously, audience creation. You don't need to sponsor a football team anymore. You can actually sponsor a platform like Copa 90. All of these come into play in a huge way from a partnership perspective, but I just wanted to show you an example of open API, most of which I kind of assume you've seen before, hopefully, at least I have.
You got my blind heart holding on to you, and I try to control it, but control is what I need. You got my blind heart holding on to you.
Connect your Spotify premium account. Choose your music and it will stream in your Uber. There's a playlist for every ride. And now, the music doesn't have to end. Your ride, your music. Available on November 21st in select cities.
So this is through Open API. It's the ability for Spotify, which is an online platform with an audience, to connect with something like Uber, again, an online platform with a different audience. And this partnership was done purely through Open API. And so the ability to connect two different organizations in a partnership is pretty phenomenal. Two different audiences in a partnership. And although I guess the experience itself is physical, the ability to do that is all through technology. The final thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of future trends is that people are questioning whether or not their sponsorship is working. I'm using a huge case study. Vodafone have been sponsoring the Formula One, or sponsoring a team, for 20 years. The reason that they initially started doing this was because they wanted to be seen as innovative. They wanted to be seen for people that purchase, Vodafone is a broadband provider, internet, basically. So they wanted to be seen as innovative, directive, driven, for the people that purchase broadband products, which typically 20 years ago were males in the household. Now, they're spending an extraordinary amount of money on this. And they started thinking, are the people that are purchasing our product broadband the same people that are purchasing or were purchasing when we chose this partnership 20 years ago? And it turns out actually it's not. So not only actually is the reason they were first involved with Formula One different, when they started asking the question, are the people that are purchasing broadband, do they see the work that we do with Formula One as innovative? And they do not. Because the people that were purchasing broadband at the time, and this is very recent, were not white males, surprised to say. And the way that they wanted to be seen as first has changed because the world has changed. And when they looked at saying, this is what's important to us, this is what we want to communicate to our customers, all of the assets that they had were wrong. All the messaging was wrong, and actually it was targeting the wrong audience. And they were spending upwards of about $30 million a year on this. And is there a better way of doing things? And they found that there was. They scrapped this after a 20-year deal. They scrapped the entire team in a really fell swoop. And what they did create is something called Vodafone Firsts. What Vodafone First is it celebrates the first moment of everyday people doing something for the first time, trying to push the boundaries, doing things that are innovative, wanting to create change. Now, that's really interesting because that is so varied and but they had a father cooking dinner for the first time for his family, to what I'm going to show you, which is a kind of a spin on how they approach this. But the response that they had, the engagement they had through this communication was extraordinary. And I'm just going to show you one video that they kind of created.
Nordschleife ist die ultimative Herausforderung. Hier ist die grüne Hölle.
Die grüne Hölle. Oh Gott, Mensch. Jetzt ist meine Zeit, um mal zu zeigen, dass ich cooler bin als dein.
Schon ein kleines Weicheis, kann ich das sagen. Ja?
Wir sind bereit für eine Runde auf der Nürburgring.
So that's really a clever use of using minimal budget, but it's really about realigning whether the partnership is still working. Are the assets that you have actually truly helping you do what you want to do? And there has been a huge trend of a lot of big brands really binning everything that they did before and starting again. I'm currently consulting with a massive insurance company that spends $300 million a year, and they want to get rid of all of the stuff that they're doing. And that creates a really unique opportunity for events like yours or others to actually really hone in on this, because there's an influx of money that were typically done with sports properties that aren't fulfilling what they used to fulfill 15, 20 years ago. So just to summarize, in terms of future trends, brands becoming rights holders and creating their own events is really huge. Secondly, open API is a really interesting area that is developing every day. And finally, unofficial platforms and partnerships are kind of really key. There are so many opportunities and areas that sponsorship is now available. And whether you're a brand or you're an event, this is something that most people are paying attention to. Now, before I go, I just wanted to leave you with one more
Bing,
thing.
Microsoft's search engine, came to us to drive trial of Bing Search and Maps and increase their relevance with a young audience. At the same time, we knew that Jay-Z would soon be launching his autobiography, Decoded. With one big idea, we harnessed this epic moment in pop culture, connected our client to a new demographic, and gave millions a reason to use Bing. We started by putting every page of Jay-Z's book out in the world, every day for a month, prior to the book's release. But the pages weren't just randomly placed. Every page's location was inspired by the story on each page, putting Jay-Z's entire biography in context. Fans could actually walk through Jay-Z's life right where it happened, finding pages in 13 major cities in the US and abroad, searching for everything from huge iconic billboards to unique collectible items. And if the media didn't exist near Jay-Z's life landmarks, we created it, taking the campaign to places money just can't buy. Gucci made custom jackets stitched with a page. A Cadillac wrapped with pages paid homage to the birthplace of New York hip-hop. A page about Big Pimpin' covered the bottom of the Delano pool. Even a bronze plaque was installed in the Marcy Projects, where Jay-Z spent his childhood. We let the story on each page determine each location. The unique pages covered hundreds of thousands of square miles. And as they were unveiled around the world, Bing tied every element of the campaign together with an integrated online game that directed fans to each page on the streets. Clues to the page locations were released daily through Facebook, Twitter, and radio, And every day for a month, millions of people gathered to solve the latest clues, guiding them to the exact street locations on Bing Search and Maps, documenting and claiming the pages they found. The unique framework allowed anyone, anywhere to walk the same streets and find a page. And over the course of the month-long campaign, they chased fame of their own as they assembled the book digitally at bing.com/JZ before the hardcover hit stores. Every single piece of the campaign was woven together with Bing technology to allow fans to experience his story. Average player engagement on our website was over 11 minutes. Jay-Z's Facebook followers grew by 1 million. And Decoded hit the bestsellers list for 19 straight weeks. Decode Jay-Z's success was covered by every major news outlet, every major cultural influencer. Even other celebrities weighed in. Bing became part of the pop culture conversation. And in only 1 month, Bing saw an 11.7% increase in visits, entering the global top 10 most visited sites for the first time, and earning 1.1 billion media impressions.
Now, I show that a lot, actually. When I take on new clients, I tend to show that, which is typically very funny because a lot of my clients are men in suits in boardrooms that are typically over 60. Now, I like to do that not just because I like to watch people's faces when I play that video, but it is a really great example of rethinking your mindset about what you think sponsorship is. Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons why that campaign is pretty phenomenal, but specifically the thing that I always want people to take away with them, I want you to ask yourself the question, and I want you to argue with yourself your own answer. But I really want you to think deep about who you think the sponsor was in that situation and why. And who do you think the rights holder was and why? And typically the first start of that question is usually, oh, well, this person was the sponsor because they paid money. And again, that's nothing what I told you today, because sponsorship is all about really leveraging somebody else's expertise. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. Feel free to tweet about it if you want to talk to me, but please definitely discuss it over lunch. I have to catch a plane now, but I'll be here for a bit just outside. If you're interested in getting my book, I'll be here for the next 30 minutes. Otherwise, thank you so much. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.